Excellent. Um, Within your particular sector, the sort of the public service sector, the 311, how do you see each of those trends affecting organizations and, quite frankly, the vendors that are working with the sector?
Sure. With us in the government service, it's really going to cause us to rethink our approach. Currently from a 311 perspective, in New York City as well as in some of the other 311s, we rely on employees who live in the city, work for the city, and that's critical. It's critical to have that local knowledge, to have the understanding, and for us, there's a huge upside to that because our reps really believe in public service. They're working in the sector because it is public service. So there's that element, that soul, if you will, that is hard to replace. From a cost perspective, though, we have to relook at that. We have to get our arms around the cost structure associated with delivering that level of service. And maybe we solve that by, simply moving more stuff to the self-service environment, some of the easier transactions, reducing the cost, and then allowing, the more difficult or more complex transactions to be done by the employees at that point. But that's really one of the first challenges. I think cost structure, as I mentioned, is key. The other piece I think that'll affect us is the retraining aspect. I mentioned sort of this idea of a hybrid tech support or a help desk type of center. The days of having a problem on a form or on a web page and sending an email and getting a response, usually coming back from the developer of said page or email, is not going to fly as more and more people continue to use that. So we're really looking into the fact that can we consolidate the tech world as well as the customer service world. That gets into retraining. You sort of take the best of both. One element's got to get retrained. So we're looking into that as well. So those are a couple of the areas that would affect us in the government sector.
Excellent. What parts of the social media does your organization engage with now, and what form does that engagement take?
For us, it's mostly push, where we have information and we are trying to push that out to the customers, to the public. We got into social media probably like many others where we had to, and we got in for probably ulterior motives. We had just launched our 311 online website, nyc.gov/311, and we really would look to drive traffic to that, and we saw social media as a way to do that. Put a piece of information out and then provide a link, which then we discovered short links and bit.ly and short URLs, but the goal was to then land the customer on the actual website. So I think our original intent in getting in was to serve another purpose, but once we started and started to embrace it, we've discovered a couple of things, and we still go mostly in the push mode where we have information we want to get out to the public. One, so they can consume it and so they can have that information, but two, quite frankly, to offload our volume into the more expensive call center channels. We predominantly used Twitter in the early stages. It was easy, there was no barrier to entry, and it fit well into sort of what we do. We discovered that Twitter was a little bit better for us than some of the more relationship building social media sites because the nature of our business with our customers is more transaction oriented than relationship oriented. Other parts of our city use Facebook and use Flickr and that nature because they do build relationships, be it our health department or our parks department. So that works well for them. Where I think we're sort of going or looking for next is how do we use this further? How do we use this to engage the public? And then the big lesson learned for us is if we're going to use social media to talk with the public, we need to be prepared to respond to the public. And I think that's what, to me, seems to be the early miss. I think everybody rushed to get into the social media arena with the idea of, here's my business, here's my model, here's my value prop, I'm putting it out there and it'll get consumed. The people that migrate to that area and the first adopters, they smell that right away and they sense that right away, and you're old school before you even start. So I think what we really need to take a look at is what is it that people are looking for in a social media realm, and how do we contribute to our value proposition, but not in a forced mode or in a mode that works for us. Instead, it's a mode that works for the public. I think the last piece for us and what we've used it for, and it's been something we didn't intend, is really as a sounding board. It's really turned into, wow, you can really get the pulse and the voice of your customer very quick. You don't need a survey. You don't need to make a bunch of calls. One tweet and just watch how that gets retweeted or what kind of response you get from that. Will tell you very quickly whether your policy, your information, whether you feel like you're on target or not. So I think that's helped the immediacy of that piece, but it also is the challenge of that you are are subject to commentary galore, basically, whether it be through a Twitter or through a blog or through retweets. So it's been an interesting experience for us in that arena.
I bet it has. Well, finally, just sort of looking at the social media in a sort of a bigger context, how do you see the social media affecting relationships between particularly public organizations and the citizens or users in terms of, for instance, improving organizational transparency and accountability to the citizens?
Right. Yeah. So all items we're actually taking a look at now and kind of trying to predict where that's going to net out. A couple of thoughts come to mind, and I talk to my folks quite frequently about let's not get hung up on the existing tools or the existing products, if you will. I jokingly say there's 2 kids in a garage in San Diego, or 2 kids in a garage in Kansas, or 2 kids in a garage in Birmingham, England, who are creating the next Twitter, the next Flickr, the next Facebook, and it'll be here in 2 years, and then it'll be obsolete in 4 years. And so we can't get too hung up on sort of what the tools are today, but instead look at what is it that we provide and what is it that the public needs or the public wants. From a government sector, I can see us moving very much from a ask and answer mode, which is pretty much what we're in now, to an advisory mode, which I think we're in the process of moving towards, and that sort of gets to our idea of pushing information out, be it a Twitter account or a reverse 311 or a reverse 911. But that's more advisory. Here's what we know. Here's what we want you to be aware of, and that's helpful and it's timely and it can play out very well for customers. But it won't be enough. So I think where we can kind of fill a niche or fill a void, if you will be in sort of facilitating conversation between communities of interest, whether that be individual constituents, whether it be a group of constituents, or just the public in general. So whether that be through crowdsourcing, which is having some element of formal aspect, some element of informal aspect. I call it brokering. The city is not going to provide an answer to your question. However, we can provide a forum through perhaps an online chat room, through a blog, or just through a landing point that people can react to. And as a city agency, we could help maybe direct some of that information or have the eyes and the ears open and understand, there is an opportunity here to do that. Potentially even connect different groups. There's a group that needs X, Y, and Z. And there's a group of perhaps, let's say, seniors who are, not the model of seniors from 2 decades ago, but the model of seniors who are not working anymore in their original career, but looking to do much more and are very active and have a lot of skills and experience. They may be able to solve some of the problems that this other community, this other constituency is bringing up, and they don't know each other. And perhaps by providing the technology, be it just a forum or a chat board or a blog, or perhaps hosting forums. Maybe it's a place where the bricks and mortar kind of overlap with the cyberspace, and that as a city agency, we can look to see how do we bring these folks together, all with the end goal of improving the quality of life for our constituents. So I think there's a play for us in that area, and I can see us getting into that, especially in that sort of crowdsourcing or brokering sort of way.
Good. Joseph, thank you very much. I do appreciate you taking your time here today.
John, thank you. It's a pleasure.